Welcome to the Short Term Show, the show about short-term rentals and long-term wealth, with real property owners hosting real properties who are crushing it in the vacation and short-term rental space. And here's your host, Avery Carl.
Good morning out there, all you short-term shoppers. It's Avery Carl, and I wanted to give you guys a quick reminder about something that I don't think I've done a good enough job of keeping you aware of. So I get a lot of emails from y'all every week, and I love getting emails from you. By the way, I love talking to our listeners, and a lot of them are asking for real estate agent recommendations in different markets. And what I don't think I've done a good job of is making sure that you guys are aware that the Short Term Show is actually a subsidiary of the Short Term Shop, which is the largest short-term rental specific real estate team brokered by EXP. I have to say that or I get in trouble in the country. So we have offices in 12 of the top short-term rental markets in the country, and we are here to help you purchase your first, second, third, or 10th short-term rental. And if you buy with us in any of those markets, we have a whole back-end training program where we will teach you everything you need to know about managing your short-term rental remotely. Everything from setting up your Airbnb and VRBO listings to teaching you how to use all the property management software that you'll need, all the way down to helping you source your local boots on the ground like cleaners and handymen. And we have some awesome Facebook support communities that we want you guys to be a part of, where we all share ideas and information about managing our short-term rental, which short-term rentals, which markets are the best, what we're doing next, and all of that really fun stuff. So if you want to be a part of the Short-Term Shop community, if you want to buy a house with us, we really want to help you guys. So head on over to theshorttermshop.com and click schedule a consultation. We'll see you there. If you invest in real estate or manage properties, you need banking that's truly built for your business. Many traditional banks make it difficult to sync banking information across many of the personal finance platforms that we as real estate investors use every day. This is why I recommend Relay. Relay is an online banking and money management platform that's a perfect fit for any real estate business. First, there are no account fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balances, which means you get to keep more money in your pocket. Relay also goes above and beyond the banking basics to help you understand precisely what you're earning, spending, and saving. You get up to 20 checking accounts to organize and allocate income for things like day-to-day expenses, investments, or taxes. And if you have multiple investment properties set up as separate business entities, that's no problem. Relay lets you open unlimited accounts and access everything from one single login. Best of all, Relay makes your bookkeeping speedy and meticulous by giving you ultra-detailed transaction data and directly syncing it back to QuickBooks Online and Xero. The ability to have so many separate bank accounts and allocation options in my user dashboard has really transformed my personal banking experience. I will never go back. It takes 10 minutes to apply for a Relay account, and you can do it online at relayfi.com/theshorttermshop. So again, for more information and to open an account, go to relayfi.com/theshorttermshop. Hey guys, welcome back to the Short Term Show. A lot of y'all have been asking questions about hotel investing, and I don't invest in hotels, so I don't have those answers, but I also have the same questions as you. So I'm really excited today to have Diya Liu. She invests in boutique hotels and she does some rehabs and things like that. But she started with just regular single family short terms and then moved into hotels. So I think a lot of you are going to get a lot of value out of this, including me, because this is a new one for me too, and I'm really interested in it. So I'll go ahead and have Diya introduce herself. How's it going, Diya?
Good. Hi, everyone from Austin.
I miss Austin so much. I'm actually ranch shopping, not for STR, just for personal, but I would like for it to be STRable so that it can put it in its own expenses. But anyway, it's got nothing to do with anything. In the hill country, I miss Austin so much. I'm jealous that you're there.
Yeah, I'm here actually, strangely, to set up my parents' house for short-term rental purposes. So I'm rarely here, but I'm here right now in my hometown.
I roped your parents in.
Yes, I have. Well, hopefully this will be their first one, so they're a little bit nervous.
I did the same thing with my parents. My mom is running
my parents' one, and she's like really, really, really high strung and nervous person. So it was a little difficult at first, but she's actually doing great. She has better reviews than we do. So she's doing a good job.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Okay, cool. So let's get right into it. So Dia, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into, first, let's start with just how you got into real estate investing, and then we'll move into the hotel stuff.
Yeah, so I practiced as a patent litigation attorney before I got into real estate. I practiced law for 5 years with international firms, first in New York City, and then I moved back to Austin, basically intending to get started in real estate investing. And so I basically was practicing law and I was working these really long hours. And I loved my colleagues, but I just looked around and I saw that even though folks were staying at these really nice apartments and et cetera, they just weren't really able to enjoy the fruits of their labor just because they were so busy working. And I've grown up traveling a lot with my parents, even though we didn't have a lot of money at the time. And so I wasn't really able to travel at all with my newly attorney minted status. And so, in fact, I felt really guilty even taking Christmas off. So I just look into the financial independence movement, and I discovered that I really wanted to get started with real estate investing versus other types of investing. And so I decided Austin was a natural answer to move back to Austin. That's where I grew up. And it looked like at the time that it was going to take off a lot. It had already grown a lot. And so I bought my first house and I really experimented with house hacking, really. And I discovered that I don't really like long-term tenants as my housemates. I loved hosting folks in my home as on Airbnb, and I have I randomly also was a fashion stylist while I was in college, and so I really like design, and so that it was kind of a light bulb moment. I love travel, I love design, I love everything technology related. So it just seemed like even though I was brand new to real estate investing, and there were a lot of folks who knew a lot more about real estate investing than I did, I know tech better than them, I know design better than them, and therefore I feel like I had a much better shot of succeeding in short-term rentals. Fast forward to the pandemic, while everyone else is, probably trying to wean off short-term rentals or shy away from short-term rentals, I went the opposite direction. I quit my lawyer job and I went further into short-term rentals and made it my full-time gig. And then I was basically slow flipping short-term rentals, basically holding it for about a year or so with actual financials, and then selling it after that. And I was getting really frustrated that it doesn't matter if I was grossing 97K on a 500K sale. I still have to make my buyer waive financing, appraisal contingencies and stuff like that, just because it doesn't matter how much I'm making. It's the value of my property is going to be based on the valuation of the property right next door to me. And so I started looking into commercial assets because I knew just from very, very basic terms that commercial assets valuation was different than residential real estate. And I
Can I
thought,
stop you right there? I just want to
yeah,
highlight something that you just said, that a lot of people make this mistake. And I see it in different Facebook groups and stuff all the time where people are like, I want to sell my single family short-term rental as a business. How much more can I charge because I have all this rental history? And the answer to that is nothing, because you're still being, when it's not commercial, when it's a residential property, your property that makes 100,000 is only worth as much as the property next door that's not even a rental, because of how they're appraised. And commercial properties, the valuation is based on, or the value is based on how much they make. So I just wanted to pull that out of your story really quick. And sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's a really, really important nugget that a lot of people miss, that I want to make sure everybody heard. So sorry, finish, go ahead.
Yeah, so well, you could make them pay cash, but of course, most people would not want to pay cash when the interest rates at the time were so low. And so I really looked in more into commercial real estate, and I decided, you know what? Um, Theoretically, I already, a lot of folks say owning a short-term rental is like owning a small hotel. So why don't I just do the commercial real estate equivalent of a short-term rental, which is boutique hotels? And so I started down this path. And honestly, it was not the smoothest journey. There were a lot of hiccups in the road. Commercial real estate is a lot different than, very different actually from residential real estate investing. And so I got a lot of hotels under contract. I took a lot of trips and put a lot of money down for due diligence. And it took over a year of me consistently making offers and getting under contract and vetting these deals before we were able to close on our first hotel, which was 48 doors or keys. And we were able to get it for a very, very steep discount at $750,000.
Ooh, where's that?
That's in the Ozarks in Northwest Arkansas.
Okay, gotcha. So you were in short term and you're like, okay, I'm tired of buying all these single families and like moving, scaling really slow. Let's just buy a hotel and buy, 10, 15, however many keys at which it's doors in residential, well, and commercial in multifamily. But for those of you who are listening, in hotel speak, it's called keys. So you were just like, well, I can just buy 10, 15, X amount of these at one time with one transaction rather than doing one at a time.
Yes, yeah.
And then you are now in control of your own destiny in terms of what you can make the property worth because you are able to add that value through whether you're updating the inside in order to get more income, but you're now that you're in charge of the bookings and how much money it's making, you're also in control of your own equity.
Yes. And I think that what we ended up focusing on after having a lot of trial and error is really these properties that already are cute
Oh,
or
okay.
already somewhat not necessarily to the level of design that I want the end product to be, but they are already somewhat they're already rentable basically. So we don't really try to buy stuff that is with a lot of deferred maintenance and etc. But perhaps the owner operator is very tired, and maybe they have other commercial real estate projects, or maybe the hotel investing was just an afterthought because of all their other projects, and because of that, it's not being operated very well. And so those are usually the deals we focus on, and we just
Okay.
increasing the valuation by operating it better, basically.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I think I'm right there with you in terms of amount of headache. So you're looking more for you're not looking for properties that, are kind of run down and that you can completely rehab. You're looking for things that are already like, cute, they're running fine, but you can do a few like sprucing type projects and then just optimize the management in order to add that value instead of having to go do like a full rehab property.
Yeah, so we've have both of the types. So we have stuff that we have gutted, but just the downtime's of course a lot longer, and therefore we have to get it at much steeper discount. So we have a beach motel rather. It's 13 units, and we were able to get it for under 400,000. So
Oh my
because
goodness.
of that, we felt like there was a lot of room for error, basically, and we're able to gut it down to the studs and for that project. But unless it's something like that where it's such a deep discount, we usually focus on stuff that we can already rent out.
Awesome. I like that. Less headache, less bullshit. So, are you focusing, what types of markets are you focusing on for this?
I look at short-term rentals and hotels pretty much across the nation. I love stuff that's a little bit off the beaten path in resort destinations, really. So mountains, lakes, beach towns, etc. I personally don't focus as much on urban destinations, but that's not saying that I would never do a deal. in a larger town. It's just I connect with a lot of the travelers that end up traveling to beach towns or mountain towns or lake resorts and etc. So that's usually what we focus on the most.
Okay. I like those types of markets myself.
Yeah.
um, okay. So what are the differences? We've talked about why you've chosen hotels, what your strategy is, and what markets you tend to focus on. What are the differences in analysis between a single family short-term rental and a full-on hotel motel?
So hotels are evaluated similar to multifamily apartments, just in that it's based on a lot of it. It's based on the net operating income. So you're basically, the easiest way back of the napkin way of calculating the valuation of a hotel is basically dividing the net operating income or NOI by the cap rate for hotels in that market. And hotels, the cap rate is based usually a little bit higher than multifamily is. And so you have to pull that data, of course, and then you get the pro forma or projected net operating income after calculating all your expenses, what you're able to gross on it, and then basically from that you're able to get what the after stabilization of the hotel will be. And if you're just trying to find whether this hotel for sale is overvalued or undervalued, you're able to take their financials and their net operating income and basically divide it by the market cap rate.
All right, so it is very similar to commercial. So when you're looking at these properties that aren't necessarily being managed correctly, are you using all of the usual data tools that people use when they're looking at short-term rentals like AirDNA and Rabu and all that stuff? Or are you using something else because it's not a residential, it's something kind of different? So if you know it's underperforming, how do you come up with your projection of what you should be able to do with it?
So it depends on how close the property is to short-term rentals versus a standard hotel room. So if, for example, is 19 cabins on a resort property, then we do look at AirDNA or Rabu a lot more closely than we'll look at hotel data, just because cabins or tree houses or these sort of properties are going to grow more similar amounts to a traditional short-term rental. Now, if it's more like a standard hotel room, you really can't rely on just the short-term rental data at that point. So we use CoStar reports, which has bought STR data, but I think it's called STAR reports technically. It's not to be confused with short-term rentals. It's just what the company is called. And so they specialize on hotel data. And so that's what we use for the average daily rate as well as occupancy.
Okay, so can you explain what CoStar is to some of our listeners who might not be familiar?
Yeah, they kind of own the market essentially on commercial real estate data and sales data. So you could, if you have CoStar access, you're able to pull up the markets for hotels at least, because that's the asset class I deal with. You're able to find the market cap rate. You're able to find the market sold price per key or per door for apartments, and you're able to find some of the hotel brokers who have sold properties in the past. And so that's what we use, and it's very, very helpful for analyzing a hotel.
Awesome. So we've gone through now the differences in the analysis. Let's talk about the management. So are you using more traditional hotel channels for your management, or are you going straight through the usual short-term rental OTAs like Airbnb and Vrbo?
So we do a hybrid. So it really, once again, comes down to, is this more like a hotel room or is this more like a short-term rental property? So using our hotel in Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas as an example, we have 32 really standard hotel rooms. So they're going to be renovated, but they're going to be identical rooms to each other. It doesn't make sense to have 32 identical Airbnb listings at that point. It really, because and you can't move around the calendar schedule as well, just because the room types are the same. The traditional OTAs for short-term rentals don't really make sense at that point. Now, in the back, we are building cabins and tree houses in the future. So those will be on short-term rental sites like Airbnb and VRBO. Using our beach hotel as an example, we're going to have different themed rooms. So those we're going to focus more on the short-term rental base model.
Okay. What beach is that in, by the way?
That is on the coast of Texas in Rockport.
Okay. I remember it was probably like 2016. We went on vacation to Tulum, and we only owned a few short-term rentals at that time, but we stayed in an entire condo complex. I mean, there were only like 10 condos, but it was totally like custom from the ground up, built to be short-term rentals, and it had rooftop pools and stuff. And I went down this rabbit hole of doing like a big condo development, or not a small condo development of short-term rentals, and how could I buy property in Mexico? And I eventually just left that, like put it down, because it was too advanced for where I was at the time. So I'm just going to buy another cabin right now, and we'll get to that later. But it's definitely always something that has fascinated me. And you're probably familiar with living in Austin. I'm a big Liz Lambert fan. I know she doesn't have any of her hotels anymore. She's out, but she's got, I can't even think of the name of that hotel in South Congress where Joe's Coffee is. Help me out. Across the street from the Continental Club, Hotel San Jose.
Oh, yeah.
Hotel St. Cecilia. And then she's got El Cosmico out in West Texas, which I think was like one of the first little developments of the Airstreams and stuff. And so she's had a lot of really cool boutique hotel success, but she was full on like in the nowhere near over here in the STR space. She was like full on hotels from way back. But I've always been a fan of all of her design and everything that she's done in her hotels. And I had big plans to do that back when I was new, and life took me another way with our investments. But one day I'll get into it. One day when I have more time, which may never come. But anyway. All right. So how are you managing these things? So I know you're not necessarily using those platforms, but do you have VAs, or are you hiring like full-time staff for these things? How is that working? How does that differ from a traditional single family STR?
So for the smaller hotels, it's a lot easier to just have a co-host, for sure. And then plus a management company that's specializing, or short-term rental management company, or co-host, and then cleaner, of course. But for our larger hotels, and especially with the demographic that that wants traditional front desk experience, we do have more hotel manager positions available. We might have fewer staff than, let's say, a Hilton or a Marriott, just because we do have automated check-in and check-outs similar to short-term rentals. But we do usually have a front desk person during business hours.
Okay. And how are you finding these front desk people? Are you just taking over from the previous manager? Like maybe they have people who were already in these positions that you're now just hiring onto your team, or are you having to like put local ads out to find staff, or like what's the process with that? Because I know with traditional short-term rentals, people are like, oh my God, how do I find a good cleaner? How do I find a good handyman? But now you've got actual customer service people who are going to be interfacing with your guests. So how do you find those people?
So we really lucked out with our very first hotel, because the manager that came with the property, she's been with the property for over 10 years, I think. And so we kept her on. But we also hired additional folks as well. So I have a pretty large Facebook group. It's Airbnb Professional Hosts. And I basically just posted on there what different roles that I needed help with. At the time, I made a long laundry list of different roles or skills that I would like to have in people that hire. And one of those was for hotel managing and front desk positions. And so I had a lot of applicants based on that. And because of that, we were able to get someone who worked 2 years at a Moroccan boutique hotel, even though
Okay.
she was originally from Atlanta. So we're very, very lucky to find her.
Awesome. That is lucky. Okay, so you didn't necessarily go local. Somebody moved. Someone relocated to work for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
it really depends on the size of the market. So sometimes we'll post on the local marketplaces, but sometimes we will hire someone who has previous hotel front desk experience, and they will move to for that position.
Okay. And so you do have like traditional, or maybe I shouldn't phrase it like that. Do you have traditional hotel cleaning in these, or do you run them like a short-term rental? Like, do you have a cleaner coming in every single day of their stay and making the bed and cleaning up? Or are they waiting until the guest is fully out and then you just clean in between stays?
So right now we are offering cleanings during the stays, but we're looking at, I've noticed when I stay at Hilton's and Marriott hotels that a lot of hotels have moved to more like, hey, let us know if you need cleaning services during your stay, and we will be happy to provide it for you. Or we are happy to provide additional linens if you need any additional linens during your stay. So at some point, we're going to look into whether we want to keep this cleanings during the stay, or we're going to reduce it to maybe just every 4 or 5 days. That's something that we're going to look at in the future. But right now, once again, the standard expectation for a lot of these guests who have been coming to the same town many, many years is that they will get a cleaning during their stay. So that's what we're going with for now.
Okay. Do you have to have any kind of special insurance for that, for when you have a cleaner going in during stays? Because I know anytime anybody loses something, the first thing they do is blame the cleaner. So do you have to have any sort of insurance for that, for when that happens? Or does that not happen as much as I'm imagining it does?
We have not had that happen, but of course we have hotel and insurance, which is totally different in terms of the coverage, compared to a short-term rental insurance policy. And so that is a commercial insurance, right? So it covers a lot more scenarios than a short-term rental policy will. And then we also have workers' comp and additional other types of policies. And so it's just the different risks is already kind of reflected in the different type of policy that we had to take out.
Okay. So there's hotel specific insurance, or is it just like a regular commercial, like umbrella type policy? Is it different?
It's different just because it is kind of similar to short-term rental insurance. It's going to be different than the long-term rental insurance. So because of the different risks involved, we do have hotel-specific insurance.
Okay. That makes sense. Well, switching gears here, another question that I have. So let's talk about breakfast. So I know a lot of hotels, they'll have, sometimes they have like a breakfast buffet. Sometimes they just have like a continental breakfast with pastries and stuff. I've seen some that don't have anything, but they just have like a different cereal dispensers. And then they have like a milk dispenser too. And that's just what they offer. Do you guys offer any food like that, or you just avoid it altogether? I personally would avoid it altogether. It sounds like a headache, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about it.
So we've done a lot of competitive research, and it looks like people do like breakfast options in our market. So we are going to offer more options, but it's not going to be where we're cooking for our guests. We're just going to heat up local pastries or local things that our restaurant partners are going to make. So we're not the ones cooking for our guests. We're just reheating stuff that they have already prepared. And we're also going to have little grab and go stuff. So we have a snack bar in the front desk. And so that does amazingly well. And so the front desk snack, whether it's a vending machine or it's just a person selling these, they can generate quite a bit of additional income. So we're going to add some granola bars and et cetera as well to our snack bar.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I know I'm willing to pay like $10 for a granola bar sometimes when I'm in a hotel, like maybe I've been in a conference all day and I like there's no other options. You can make some extra money on that because I think people are willing to pay for that convenience of just being able to grab a snack and not having to like go out and wait at a restaurant or find a convenience store or something like that. So I do think there's a lot of value there in that convenience. And I guess you're offering like a breakfast catering sort of sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, it will be an add-on that guests can select when they book. Basically, it's like, hey, do you want a breakfast empanada for $6 or something like that?
How do you deliver that? Like if you've got X amount of guests that are opting into breakfast and X amount of guests that are like, nah, I don't need breakfast. How do you know who's who? How are you policing that? Are you delivering it to the room or like what's the deal there? Because it seems like more
Um,
to keep up with.
yeah, so your reservation will be tied to whether you have a breakfast option or not. So, and then I've seen some hotels actually do this where they will have you circle a piece of paper, which is the not so tech way, but you circle a piece of paper and say, hey, I want my breakfast. This is my breakfast selection, and I want it delivered at 9 a.m. And so that's the non-tech way of doing it, but we're looking at leveraging technology and basically incorporating that into when they're booked, they can select, hey, I want this type of breakfast, and this is the range of time that I would like my breakfast to be delivered, or I want to just pick up my breakfast item
Okay.
at the front desk.
Options. I like options. All right, so we're to the end of the show. Last three questions, but before we get to the last three questions that we ask everyone, is there anything that I missed that you, as someone who does this every day, would want the rest of the world who's interested in possibly doing this to know?
I guess I guess I want to hammer I want to, I guess, emphasize the fact that larger hotels are definitely a different animal than short-term rental investing. I personally did not know this. I thought that, hey, I could just have 40 short-term rentals in one hotel and that would be the end of. So it is very, very different, especially when you're getting to above a dozen hotel rooms. That it's going to be very, very different in how you operate it and the time commitment initially in setting it up and optimizing the process and training the staff and onboarding because you do now have employees. It's going to be a totally different process. And if you just have some vacation rentals.
Totally agree with that. I think a lot of people, when they start having, maybe they buy their first short-term rental and they start having a lot of success and then they get that green light syndrome is what we call it, where they're like, I'm going to buy hotels and I'm going to do this and I'm going to start the best management company in the world and buy my course for $16,000 a month. And, it's really like, just focus on the thing that you can do now and scale later as you go. Like, I mean, I did the same thing. I decided I was going to have a condo hotel in Tulum. And I'm like, no, I'm going to stay my course, do what I can do now. And when I can do the bigger things later, then I will do that. So I agree. Totally different animal there. So, all right. So last three questions. First question, what advice would you give 20-year-old Diya?
Oh man. So I definitely grew up in a very traditional with a very traditional Asian set of expectations, basically. And so I'm supposed to get good grades, go to good schools, get a good job, and boom, happiness or at least success. And I guess I would just say that go if you have an idea to entrepreneurial idea and to go for it basically a lot sooner. I see a lot of folks who are way, way younger than me succeeding and killing it in real estate investing. And sometimes I do wish maybe I should have just started a lot earlier. Maybe I should have done wholesaling or something while I was in college or, concurrently with my education and taking the traditional path.
Same. I mean, I've said it a bunch of times on this show, so nobody needs to hear my story again. But yeah, I agree. Wish I would have done stuff when I was in college at the same time. All right. So next question, kind of along the same lines, kind of different. What advice do you have for a new investor who's just getting started today, like this year in the current economic state?
I think the best advice is just to start and stop. Analyzing is very, very good to make sure that you're getting a really good deal. I think the two biggest new mistakes or newbie mistake are going to be one, not analyzing enough. So I've seen people who jump into short-term rental investing without a lot of forethought or due diligence on the market and the property that they're getting to make sure that it's still a cash flowing asset with very, very conservative financial assumptions. Right now, and with hotel deals, we do not want to overpay for the asset, and we do not want to be left holding the bag if the market that takes a nosedive, basically. And so we are very conservative with our financial projections. We're analyzing at much higher cap rates at exit, for example, than if we than what the current market is doing. And same with short-term rentals. I've always been very, very conservative with my analysis. Now, the other end of the spectrum, I've seen this a lot too, is that folks are over-analyzing and freaking out about everything. And I wanted to clarify what I said about my parents earlier. This is, I think, where they fall into is that I was the same way. So my parents are very, very smart. So, but they also, are very nervous about everything, and so very uncertain about everything. And so I would say a lot of folks I've seen don't hesitate to go into real estate investing because the market's too high, the interest rate's too high. But a couple months ago, the market was too hot, so they didn't want to enter the market. And then now the interest rates are too high, or so they don't want to enter the market. And then maybe in 6 months, the market has cooled down, and now they're worried about that too, and so they don't want to enter the market. So there's a lot of different reasons that you might be nervous about real estate investing, but the best way to learn is really to dive in and do the best job analyzing the deal that you can. You're not going to know everything from day one, whether it's short-term rental investing or hotels. You can definitely band with people who know more than you. But at the end of the day, you have to just do it at some point to really learn. So
Yeah, there's always going to be a reason you can find not to invest or not to get started. So eventually you do have to just pull that trigger and go.
yes.
All right. Last question. What is your favorite book that has impacted your mindset?
I don't want to name the obvious book. So,
Okay. We had somebody say
so,
Harry Potter last week.
oh man, like I feel like everyone probably mentions Rich Dad Poor Dad at one point. So I don't want to just
It's
list
okay.
that book. So, I mean, but I do think that in general, that book has helped me a lot. And it also just all the resources and podcasts on Bigger Pockets, on Choose FI. And I honestly am more of a podcast person than I am a books person. And
Mhm.
so I think that just getting started with podcasts like this one is really, really great to listen to and get motivated in getting started in real estate investing.
I do love listening to other people's stories on podcasts, because people might have thought about maybe they're doing the same thing as you, but they went about it a different way that you didn't think about. And you're like, oh man, yeah, that's cool. I should try that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of podcasts as well. All right, Dia, thank you so much for coming on the show. If our listeners want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
I am pretty active on Facebook in two Facebook groups. One is Airbnb Professional Host, and one is Short-Term Rentals and Hotel Investors. And then you can always reach out to me on Instagram as well. I'm at Diya ESQ.
All right. Everybody, I'm sure we'll definitely start following you there. And thanks again so much for coming on, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you so much for having me.